All right, at this point in the template hierarchy, we are going to turn from our run-of-the-mill default content in WordPress and start looking at what happens when we want to work with custom post types. So by default, we have posts and pages, also media technically, but we can add custom post types like portfolio or product, as well as custom fields. So in addition to just title, content, excerpt, we could have pretty much anything we want. So the archive-post-type.php is going to be named in accordance with whatever the new post type is. So we're going to use project, for example. So archive-project.php would control our project post type. If you had products, it would be archive-products. And then it will automatically pick this up as the archive page for how that custom post type is going to be listed out. So before we get into coding this, though, I want to make sure that we're set up properly on the back end. So let's look at the custom content that I've set up just to make sure that you're on the same page with how we're approaching all this. And there's a few little tidbits I want to point out along the way. So if I come into my admin area for my sites, I'm using the plugin Custom Post Types UI, and I have a post type added called Portfolio. Plural label portfolio and then singular label project makes sense. And down here, we could change a bunch of labels and things, but what I want to point out is has archive. So if has archive is set to true, notice it's default false, then we will automatically pull in the correct template. So if we turn this off or set it to false, then it is not going to have this fallback architecture where it will pick up the correct template and we would have to create a custom one with a custom loop, etc. But if we set it to true, then it will automatically work for what I'm about to show you. So you want to make sure that that's set up. If you know how to code these by hand already, we're not really going to get into that at this point. This plugin will do fine for us. So we have that set up, and then we also have some custom fields set up. We just have a basic one, a URL field, so that we could link to the actual project URL, and post type is equal to portfolio. So this will only show up if we have if we're editing or working with portfolios. Now in the portfolio section of the site, I have a few already added, and if we come in and look at one, it's basically just the title, the content, and then the URL custom field we have set up, as well as a featured image for each one, because we want that to be set up and working. So that's everything that we have on the back end. And let me point out something on the front end of the site. Notice that I have this page portfolio here. This is not a normal page within WordPress. Because I have this custom post type set up, inside of my main menu, one of the options you have is to add a post type archive. So if I come into add items under portfolio, we could see that we have this option for all portfolio, and that's going to be our post type archive. We could also link to specific projects, but because we have that archive enabled, then I just added that there and renamed it to just say portfolio. So you'll also want that set up because then it's going to trigger the correct template when we go ahead and load the page. So now let's come in and look at the code now that we have all of this set up. If you need to pause and make sure that you have this set up ahead of time, or you could just do it all at once after you see what we're going to do with all the code on the back end. Okay, so because the archive portfolio is going to fall back to archive.php, let's go ahead and open that one up and save that as the file that we want to use. So we're going to save it as archive portfolio. If you named your custom post type something else, or if when you start practicing on your own with your own project that you have other custom post types that make sense for you, then just name them whatever that custom post type is. Okay, so we'll set this to portfolio, and we'll update the name of our page, archive-portfolio, so we know where we are. And right off the top, I know I'm going to remove this sidebar because I want to have a full page width. You could maybe make a custom sidebar there. You know how to do that. And I'm going to set the class to be extended, so this will be full width. Okay, so we have our basic archive set up, and that's great. But the problem is that it's still going to be displaying template parts, content posts, and then this here. So that's not really ideal for us because that's going to be formatted to working with posts and not with our custom portfolio stuff that we want. So it probably makes sense to go ahead and create a new template include here, and we're going to call this portfolio. So for a portfolio, we could probably just grab, let's say, page, for example, and save this over. And we're going to call it content portfolio. So we know that we want this to actually be an H2 and link to the portfolio page. So we will go ahead and change this to H2. And then we also want to put in anchor tags with a link. So we could do PHP the permalink. Close that there. Okay, so that is going to give us our permalink and our link as the title. And notice we're passing them as parameters. You could also use this on the outside. We've done it both ways. I'm just trying to show you the flexibility. And as we get into template tags, we'll talk about the benefit of this approach that we're taking here. So we have that set up, and let's see, what else do we want to have there? We also want to have the post thumbnail. So we could do PHP the post thumbnail, and that's going to take a parameter that we could pass of full. We'll talk more about this in more depth later, but for now that's just going to give us a picture. If you wanted to wrap it in the permalink tag again, you could do something like copy this over. Oh, copy correct thing over. So now we should have an anchor tag going to the permalink for the post, for the portfolio. And then instead of the content, we'll do the excerpt just so that we're leaving something to be seen on the full page. So again, this is going to be our archive portfolio. It should take over for this specific post type. And then we have a custom template part, which is basically going to hopefully give us a link to the post, the post thumbnail associated with it, and the excerpt. So let's jump over on the site and take a look at this. Okay, so on my site, the first thing I see is the title is missing, and you know what? I made the same mistake again that I've seen in the past here. Hold on one second. What we have is a PHP tag being opened, and then the permalink. We don't need these. What we need to do is close that string and concatenate. And then close the rest of the anchor tags. Let's see, it opens it up there, closes, opens. And then we need one more single quote there, remove the semicolon. Okay, so now we should have our title displaying. Oh, we see, not quite right. It's actually echoing that out there. We don't want to use that. We want to use get the permalink. Okay, so all of this stuff we'll get into more depth later on with template tags and talking about this. So it may make sense or be a little bit easier for you to not to pass these as parameters to deal with concatenating and opening and closing PHP and all of that. But this is what we've got working here. But again, you can pull this out and we'll talk more about passing and stuff and all of this later on in template tags. So this is really, again, just to give you the thing up and working. And if we look at our site now, we could see, okay, cool. We've got the right page loading when we're on the portfolio. And it is indeed showing our portfolio archive. We could customize this later on. And then when we link to something, it is linking to template tags. Now, this is something we'll pick up with the next video of how to build this out. So let's pause here for a second. And at this point, you want to catch up with what we had. So create your archive portfolio, make sure that you have all the custom content in WordPress. If you're using featured images, you want to get those in as well. And then for your own project, you should be building a theme along with this, and hopefully you have an idea for how some custom content could be used. So something that's not a page or a post, maybe it could be something similar, something different that just allows you to distinguish some of your content between page and post, and also introduce some custom post type fields or some custom fields, which we've done in this case as well. So go ahead and catch up, implement it on your own. You could do a whole lot of stuff with custom post types. It really does open WordPress up beyond just the posts and pages. So understanding how the archives for all of this can work out of the box with the template hierarchy is really important. So go ahead and tackle that. And then the next step, we'll look at how to deal with single templates for working with custom post types. Oh, and let me just point out one last thing here in case you're wondering how this styling happened. That is all happening with some custom CSS. Basically, if we're on an article that has the class of portfolio assigned with it, which will be assigned automatically by using the post class, then it's basically going to set up these floats and spread them out that way. So you could apply some different CSS that's just being thrown in to help with the styling of this. So that didn't happen automatically. We did have to add a little CSS, but it's already there in the CSS for you. So it should automatically display like this without you having to do anything extra. But do want to point that out so that you know what's going on. And again, to remember that these classes are going to be there, and you could do a lot with the CSS based on the classes that you might not need to hard code into a template.